Welcome to the e-learning course for Asprova hands-on training. 2G, creating a prototype, advanced settings 2, specifying resource constraints and adding more realistic settings. Starting Asprova. Click on the Start button to display the Windows Start menu. Select Programs, Asprova APS, Asprova from the menu to start Asprova. Open the project file. Select File, Open from the main menu and select as2g.ar4 from the folder Basic 2G to 2H to open the Asprova project file for this training section. So far, ABC Corporation has successfully shortened production lead times and increased on-time deliveries using Asprova's various features. Also, visual management has now become possible through Asprova's GUI to identify bottleneck resources graphically in the schedule. The company has set their next goal to improve scheduling precision so that they can meet increasing customer orders. They have also changed the inspection method for the sake of quality improvement, which requires them to make necessary adjustments, specifying according to resource quantity as a resource quantity constraint for a resource. First, let's try to be able to handle the increase in orders. Since visual management has been realized and we can now identify that process PR is a bottleneck resource, let's add a new resource to that process. Change to the Integrated Master Editor table. Add a new resource PR2 to process PR. Resource PR2 has the following characteristics. 1. 2 processing robots are embedded, making it possible to produce 2 pieces at the same time. PR1 can only produce 1 piece at a time. 2. The setup time is longer than that of PR1. Set the setup to 180 minutes. Set the production to 5 MP. Since the new resource requires a longer setup time, the company has decided to use PR2 only when the production quantity is greater than 110. After you have finished specifying the setup time and the production capacity for the new resource PR2 as shown, change to the calendar table. To reflect the resource quantity of resource PR2, we'll add a calendar record for PR2. Resource quantities are represented as the height of each working time period on the resource Gantt chart. The resource quantity of one machine is 1 and 2 for 2 machines. Set the default resource quantity of PR2 to 2. PR2 matches both the existing calendar record in the first row of the table and the newly added calendar record in the second row of the table. However, the second record will be used if you specify a larger sort order for the second record. Return to the resource Gantt chart. Since PR2 processes one operation using 2 processing robots, we will set the resource quantity constraints for PR2 to according to resource quantity. Select resource PR2 from the resource Gantt chart. In the Properties window, select the General tab and set resource quantity constraints to according to resource quantity. You can make the same setting also from the resource table, which you can open by selecting Table View Resource in the main menu. With this setting, the resource quantity will be fully used when scheduling, making it possible to shorten the production time. To make the resource Gantt chart look better, specify the display color and display order for PR2. Place the mouse cursor at the boundary line between the year and date of the resource Gantt chart and move it to the right to show the resource table. Specify the display color and display order as shown. If you press the F3 key when you complete the setting, the Gantt chart will be redrawn, showing the resources according to the display order you specified. Reschedule. Since PR2 has higher capacity than PR1, the operation in process PR has now been assigned to PR2. Also, since we specified that PR2 has 2 processing robots, the production time has been greatly shortened. Specifying a valid condition for a resource. Since resource PR2 takes time for setup, let's specify to use it only when the production quantity is greater than 110. Also, for resource PR1, we will specify to use it only when the production quantity is 110 or smaller. Let's specify the valid condition for each resource. To specify the valid condition for each resource, select the target resource PR1 or PR2 from the resource Gantt chart, and in the Properties window, specify the expression from the property Valid Condition in the Settings tab. Clicking on the ... button for Valid Condition will display the Valid Condition dialog in which to specify the expression. Specify the property as production quantity, the condition as greater than, and the value as 110. Click the OK button. Next, select resource PR1. Set the property to production quantity, the condition as less than or equal, and the value to 110. Click the OK button. In order to check the result of using the valid condition, confirm in the order table that the quantity of order 1 is 100 and add order 2 with the quantity of 200. Open the order table. Add a new order, 02. You can copy and paste order 1 by using Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V. Change the order code to 02 and set the order quantity to 200. Return to the resource Gantt chart and reschedule. Order 1 with a quantity of 100 has been assigned to resource PR1, and Order 2 with a quantity greater than 110 has been assigned to resource PR2. Next, let's try to improve the scheduling precision by reflecting yield rates and scrap quantities. In the hands-on training manual, the calculation method used for applying yield rate and scrap quantity is shown. We shall assume that we have learned the following facts from ABC Corporation's scheduling history. 1. Every time an order is processed by process PR, the company gets 1 scrap immediately after the resource setup. 2. The yield for process PR is 95%. Let's freeze this column so that I can scroll and keep the important information still displayed. We'll set and test the scrap quantity and the yield rate separately so that we can clearly see how they are calculated. First, in the Integrated Master Editor, we'll specify 1 for the scrap quantity. You can see that currently the quantity for the orders are 100 and 200. Let's reschedule. You can see that in order to have 100 of order 1 and 200 of order 2, Asprova has added an extra unit to the start of the order to make sure that we can compensate for the 1 unit of scrap that will be generated. Return to the Integrated Master Editor table. Reset scrap quantity back to 0. Set the yield rate to 95%. You can do this by entering the value 0.95. Return to the resource Gantt chart. Reschedule. Although Asprova is now correctly calculating the values required to produce the necessary amount for each order, as a result of the above rescheduling, decimal fractions have occurred in the output quantities. It is not a problem if the quantities refer to those of liquids or weights of sheet steel or so on. However, if they refer to the number of parts, work instructions may not be directly issued using those numbers. In that case, you can specify to round, round up, or truncate the numbers. Change to the Integrated Master Editor table and select the output instruction for process PR. Then click on the General tab in the Properties window and click the ... button for the property Production Quantity Formula. Click the Clear button to remove the current expression and then select Round to the nearest integer from the standard registered expressions. Click the OK button. Return to the resource Gantt chart. Reschedule. You can see that all the quantities have been recalculated and rounded up. In the above example, quantities are calculated only in the direction starting from final items towards materials. However, there are cases where quantities such as result quantities are calculated in the direction towards final items. In that case, you will need to make a similar setting in the property Output Quantity Formula in addition to the setting in the property Production Quantity Formula. We recommend using a round function when setting the output quantity formula that rounds down numbers, since the quantity formula calculates quantities in the opposite direction from the production quantity formula. Also, there is a need to alter the formula to not consider the yield rate in cases where the reported quantity has been specified. In such cases, the output quantity formula of output instruction needs to be changed as shown. The effect of this formula is to use the reported quantity if it has been specified. Otherwise, the yield rate will be used. Specifying production suspend time max and setup suspend time max. In the third process, the inspection process, a person in charge is assigned by each lot, and operations in the morning and afternoon are carried out by different persons. Therefore, we need to create a schedule so that the inspection process will not be suspended over a non-working period. Also, since resource PR2 requires a complicated setup, it should be performed without an interval and non-straddling a non-working time period. Let's set up the production suspend time max and the setup suspend time max. We can specify values for the above suspend time max using those properties for each resource. The production time of process CK for order 02 in the above figure indicates suspension. Also, the setup in process PR2 includes suspension. For PR2 and CK1, let's specify the production suspend time max and setup suspend time max as follows in the Settings tab in the Properties window. First, for PR2, let's specify the setup suspend time max as -1m. If we reschedule, you can see that the setup time for PR2 will no longer be suspended. Next, for resource CK1, specify the production suspend time max as -1m. Specifying negative values in any of the 5 properties for the suspend time max means not to allow any suspend time. Also, if you specify negative values for setup suspend time max and teardown suspend time max, the setup task and production task cannot be assigned apart. After rescheduling, you can see that the production for resource CK1 is no longer suspended. With these settings, operations are assigned so as never to be suspended over a non-available time period. If, for example, you allow the maximum of 60 minutes as suspend time, specify 60 minutes as the suspend time max of that resource. This is the end of Asprova hands-on training 2G. Thank you for watching.